What's up, guys? Mr. Dan here, back again for another edition of Martial Arts Monday. This week we're taking a look at the highly influential and important kung fu film King Boxer, aka The Five Fingers of Death, which was the title that it was known by in the United States when it was released here just a few months before The Big Boss, starring Bruce Lee, which I've reviewed on the channel. Please check out that review. This is the film that is credited with starting that kung fu craze in the United States. And people have said that Lo Lieh, the star of this film, walked so Bruce Lee could run. So very influential film. A lot of the things that you see in here were kind of pioneered in this film and would show up in later films. Let's just talk about who's in it. You've got, of course, the legendary Lo Lieh as our hero. He had hundreds upon hundreds of film and TV roles. Sort of transitioning to more of a villain by the time he was in his mid-30s to 40s, passing away in his 60s. Sadly, I mean, we could have gotten another decade out of this guy. He was mostly doing villainous roles then, but really just quite a force. He has quite an intensity about him in this film, as he often does. But yeah, he would do like almost anything. He would show up in interesting because this film sort of kick-started the kung fu craze. Bruce Lee arrives a few months after this. The rest is history. And of course, on my channel, I've been talking about a lot of Bruceploitation films because I find that fascinating. We have the Enter the Clones of Bruce Lee documentary coming out and everything. He actually appears in this film, Bruce's Deadly Fingers. So he was not afraid, which has been reviewed on the Mad Bloods channel. Check it out. They even have an appearance by Mr. Dan in that review. So he wasn't afraid to also do independent films, smaller films, Bruceploitation films. He did a lot of different roles. He appears in this film Human Lanterns, which is a kind of a serial killer kung fu movie hybrid. He would later, and he had some international success too. He would appear with Lee Van Cleef in a Margaretti film called The Stranger and the Gunfighter, which is one I was unaware of until Joe McCall. Check him out on Facebook, and until he made me aware of that film, that just blew my mind. Like Lo Lieh and Lee Van Cleef together in a movie. And of course, you can also check out Joe on the Mad Bloods channel. So I haven't seen that film yet, but unfortunately the copy they have on YouTube doesn't look too good, so I really want to watch it for the first time, watch a good copy in the first time. So that's Lo Lieh, just a legendary figure in film and in martial arts films in particular. The director was Chang Hwa-jung, a Korean director. The Korean connection is very strong in this one. He used a lot of very innovative camera techniques and even seemingly little things, like applying a certain kind of a powder to the floorboards so that when bodies hit, you could see the impact. That would be used later. I remember watching a Jackie Chan film where they couldn't quite get that right, so I think it was Jackie himself was like rolling down these steps and there was like barrels coming down after him, and they would do it like 10 times because they wanted it to look good. But you see that in a lot of his films. The bamboo poles that people are getting whacked with have this powder on them too, so you can see that impact. The action director in this is Law Kar-wing, who we just talked about in Shaolin Mantis. So there's some pretty big names involved in this. And some of the things that this film sort of pioneers, you have a tournament. The film sort of culminates in a tournament. Our heroes trying to train for the tournament. Then you have like a sort of a secret or hidden technique called the Iron Finger. Lots of finger and hand techniques in these movies. And what's cool is the way they sort of film it is, and I'll show you the Shaw scope picture here, is they actually shine like a red light on his hands. Sometimes only very briefly, like it's almost subliminal. And that's when you hear that siren type music that you remember that was used in Kill Bill. As far as martial arts go, that was originated here, but this movie stole it from Ironsides, the TV show. If you watch the opening of Ironsides, you'll hear it. So I thought that was pretty clever. That was pretty funny to see that, to hear that too. So yeah, this is the Dragon Dynasty DVD. It is the first film in Volume 1 of Shaw Scope, which is kind of significant, and it's also in this Basher box from Arrow. So very, very important and significant film. And it also has quite a motley crew of bad guys, which is something we would see in future films, including some foreigners. The foreigners come in. You have 3 Japanese samurai that come in. They've got samurai swords, of course, different weapons and techniques that must be adjusted to. And Bolo Young even shows up for a quick minute. He must have had 3 or 4 other films to film that day. But He plays a guy who's challenging people on the streets. He plays a Mongolian fighter, so he's got crazy looking eyebrows. But he gets his butt kicked by somebody else who looks like he's going to have a conflict with some of the bad guys, but then they sort of invite him in to help with the training. So you have a motley crew of bad guys indeed who resort to some pretty underhanded tactics to win this tournament. And then you have within the Kung Fu school itself somebody who is senior to the Lo Lieh character will kind of betray him, which is another theme that you see time and time again in these films. Because when he comes in, he doesn't quite show off everything that he can do. He kind of loses a couple matches, and you just get the idea that he's better than that, you know? Like, he's a humble guy. It's hard for him to, like, assert himself. Then he has some tragedy, as usual. Then he learns these techniques, and he comes back and fights in the tournament at the end. So, I mean, how many films have had tournaments and kumites? So there's almost like an endless amount of things that you have seen in other films that were pioneered in this film, which makes it like really essential viewing for fans of martial arts and kung fu films. Definitely check it out. It's got a little bit of gore in parts, so there's some different versions. There you see a character with some eyeballs. So some versions have cut that out, and there's some pretty interesting shots. Where the fists and hands are coming right at you, and even like 2 fingers eye poke. That's how they get the eyeballs. So if you grew up like me, that makes you think of the Three Stooges. It's hard not to. So that aside, there's some pretty interesting camera work in here, and it's actually very innovative. Excellent film. Definitely check it out. What are your thoughts? Are you familiar with Lo Lieh, and have you seen King Boxer, aka Five Fingers of Death? Let me know in the comments below, and I will see you back next week for another Martial Arts Monday review. Thanks.